thank you, Andrew, for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and I'm so excited for the conversation today.
Amazing, Danny. I'm so pumped to be here.
Amazing. So let's start with South Africa and your journey, because, we're going to get to online education and learning and all this stuff, but I want to get a real feel for who you are as a human being before we dive into all that stuff. So what you were born in South Africa, correct?
Yeah.
And so take us through your journey and your formative years and how that's played a role in your life.
Yeah, totally. So I was born in Cape Town, lived there for like the first 26, 27 years of my life. And like, it's a totally different world to here. I'm living in New York now. I've been here for 11 years, and it's a totally different place, but it's also not as different as you think, I think, coming from America. So it's like, I think the best way to describe South Africa, there's this, like, a lot of people say, like, the African soil. There's something about the soil and about the people that it's such a, like, you feel so close to humanity there. Like, it's, wow. There's a concept that's in South Africa called Ubuntu, which is that, like, I am only me because of you. Like, that there's this counterpoint that justifies or not, or like supports your existence. And so it's that philosophy comes through a lot in South Africa. But there's also a lot of dark history to South Africa as well, right? With apartheid and the history of that. We won't go into all of that. So it's this, like, real, like, crazy melting pot of a country that's, still to this day has a lot of, like, divide, a lot of, like, the social injustice and racial injustice we see here in America now is, it's a big part of the fabric of society there. So growing up in South Africa, to answer your question, it's funny because, growing up there, I was, fairly, like, for the overall population, like, fairly privileged, in that growing up didn't really see all of that, like, that's happening around there. And so this also speaks to some part of South Africa, which is still quite divided, even though it's sort of the Rainbow Nation now. But yeah, it was this very comfortable upbringing. It's a beautiful country, very outdoors, like, the weather's pretty much always good all year round. And so it was a fun time, like, just really joyful, kind of experience growing up there. And so, yeah, I don't want to paint this, like, I don't want to go too far in each direction. It's not utopia, but it's also not, like, perfect. You know what I mean? So I think it was this interesting balance of both, but also that human to human connection thing is something that's definitely resonated for me. And I think kind of is something that I've taken into the rest of my life. Like, I love meeting new people. I'm sort of actually, like, an introvert inside, but I start quite introverted, I think, or sorry, extroverted with people. And I think a lot of that comes from just, I like getting to know people, I like meeting new people and like finding out about them. And so, yeah, that was kind of my childhood growing up in South Africa. And I sort of, like, maybe close this end of this chapter was why I'm here, was that growing up in South Africa, you're very much in the tip of Africa, which feels like the tip of the world. Where like a lot of the center of the world, a lot of, like, the world feels like it's spinning around the US, the UK, like, bigger cities like that, in Europe as well. And so I was always drawn to that. I traveled a lot as a kid, and as a teenager and into my 20s. It's quite hard to do from South Africa. It's a long flight to get anywhere. So it was something you try to do once a year. And so I always had that sort of, like, draw to other parts of the world, to meeting other people in different parts of the world. And so I had got this opportunity through the company I was working at to come to the States for 2 years. That was kind of the initial thing. And I just loved it here. I loved the pace of New York. I loved, like, the energy of it, and just meeting, like, people from all over, including other South Africans that I only had met in New York. And so, yeah, I just never left. And here I am 11 years later.
Well, it's so funny because if you look at that part of yourself that is always wanting to meet new people in new places, you're basically doing that today via the internet, and it's really cool how that happens. So let's dive into that. How did you get into meeting people online and the normalization of that? And I know we're fast forwarding a few years here, but
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that.
So it's such a great, I know this is something near and dear to your heart, and where you are now in your journey. Like, it's just blown me away, and it's kind of like only happened recently, which is the crazy thing. Like, I only started taking Twitter seriously at the beginning of 2020, like maybe like end of 19, beginning 2020. And still back then, if you remember, like, it was quite weird to like jump on a call with a total stranger, right? Like, no one really did that. It certainly wasn't like often on video, like maybe, so that wasn't the norm. And then obviously the pandemic hit and all that sort of stuff. And that very quickly normalized this, to your point, I think. And so I started, like, I was always a lurker on Twitter, and like, passively observing, like taking it in, reading a lot of other people's stuff, and just absorbing and consuming. And I've also been a huge fan of online courses. And then take those as students. And it was only in the summer of last year, like July of last year, that I started to really get active in the communities. It was through a Rite of Passage, David Perel's course, where that really started taking off for me. And then, I don't know, there was some of that resistance at the beginning of, like, I don't know, maybe because it was weird and felt awkward at the beginning. But once I just embraced it, it was like no turning back, and I got so much conversational energy. I know you and Brandon Chung are good friends, and like, talk to him in the very early days of his podcast, and like this idea of conversational energy. He was in Rite of Passage. And it's just like, it's so true. Like, you get so much energy from talking to people. And now, like, I adopt this mindset of just default to yes, right? Like, just take the call, jump on it, see what happens. And I can probably count in less than fingers in one hand, like how many times I've been disappointed in doing that. And, I must have had like 50 to 100 calls with people now. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about the best ideas or the most exciting conversations that have come from just hopping on calls with people.
Oh man. I think for me, like, the biggest thing, and this goes back to what I was saying, like, I love meeting new people and learning from them. And I've been very fortunate to just meet a bunch of people who are passionate about teaching, and that's, to me, is like my favorite thing. And the podcast that I've just recently started is to do just that. Is like, how did you learn that? Just learning from people to like figure out how they acquired skills or knowledge in a certain domain. And it's like, and like, I know you get so much from these interviews, like you were saying before we started recording. It's just, so I can't even pick one. Like, there's so many where it's like learning. It's just, I just learn like constantly, and that's addictive.
Yeah. What are some of the things that are on your mind recently about what you've learned? Because, we've dived into so many different areas, and what's on your mind recently about what you've learned?
I think one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is that, and this is actually the benefit of meeting so many different people, is that you realize, like, no one has it totally figured out.
Yes.
Right. And like, and if you've interviewed some like amazing people on your show, and I'm sure you've seen this, where it's like, everyone will admit that they don't have it figured out. Right. And that's like incredibly liberating once you realize that. It's like, oh, okay, shit, I can do anything. Like, I don't have to, because you feel like you have this, I need to have that to be able to then do that. I need to like be able to prove something, but it's actually not like that. You can just literally go on a journey of discovery and figure it out as you go, and build it in public. And like, and that's another actually very cool topic and thing that I've been thinking a lot about, is like, you can share that journey with others, and that actually helps you. It accelerates your journey, as opposed to like what I think the default thing is, that holds you back, shows that you don't know what you're doing or whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. And building in public is something that I think is so important in 2021, to let people know and bring people along for the journey that is. So how have you utilized that so far?
Wow, man. That has worked for me in such an amazing way over the last, so I said like July was when I really started like going all in on this. And in about October of last year, I started writing a lot about teaching. And so I've been like doing this in a sort of more B2B like enterprise thing for about 10, 15 years. So there's a lot of like accumulated experience there, which in talking to people in the online course world, I started realizing like, okay, this is resonating with them. It's like helping them clarify a lot of like the issues and challenges they had. So I started writing about it. I like get into like academic papers on stuff like, and reading like these like PDFs like on like different studies like around adult learning, and that's now finally starting to pay off, and that I can share some of those things with people, and so yeah, building in that in public and just sharing that here's another actually default thing. It's like a lot of people, I used to think that if you share your best ideas, someone's going to steal them, and like then you've lost your opportunity. And that's actually also the opposite of what actually happens, is that it's like people actually like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. They help you build on your ideas, and then also when it's time to implement it, they still need your help. Like it's not that thing because you've written down isn't valuable without you, and that's another powerful thing to realize. Now you have this amazing ability to get scale and distribution and reach a lot of people, to just show them how much you can help them. Like it's amazing. Like what a world we're living in.
It's crazy because if you give that information out, if you give your best information out and then someone uses it, they then become your biggest fan because they're telling everyone, hey, Andrew Barry told me to do this with my online course. It went amazing. You should check him out too. And then it's a never ending cycle of people referring to you in word of mouth. And you only do that by putting yourself out there and sharing what you know. And it's intimidating at first to be like, oh, I have to put out this information. So was it difficult for you to make that jump?
100%, man, 100%. And I think that, and again, it's another default view that you like, it's an imposter syndrome thing, right? Like, who am I to have an opinion on this thing that other people have probably thought about way more than me, right? But you don't know that until you put it out there and you start to like socialize the ideas with people. So that definitely held me back. And I think another part of this is like getting really focused on a niche that you can help with instead of trying to like just be very super broad with things. And because it's I love what you say. Like it's that you find those fans, and if you can connect with like you just literally on like one hand, that's all you need, right? 4 or 5 people that are like, yeah, like that this dude knows what he's talking about, and then you're riffing on ideas. You have like regular calls with those people, and suddenly you've got your idea validated, and you've got this like little community of people that can help connect you with other people, and it's just that like when that sort of starts to organically happen, it's like mind-blowing.
Yeah. So you mentioned online courses before, and that's obviously your area of specialty and knowledge. And I got to be honest, when I first came across your stuff, I was like, online courses, that's so scammy. That's like, and so that is the natural reaction and default because so many online courses are so bad and have been so bad for so long. And so talk about like the problem with a normal online course and what you see as like when you look at a course and you say to yourself, what is going on here? Talk about the problems.
So glad you brought that up. So online courses started like right at the beginning. Well, first of all, when the internet exploded and like in the early days, right? It was Moocs. So it was these huge like, and suddenly people realized like,
what is a Mooc for people who don't know?
Yeah. So Mooc is a massive open online course. Yeah,
okay.
Mooc. And so MOOCs are, and so it was basically like universities and colleges realizing like, all right, it's not just how many people can fit in a lecture hall, it's the entire internet. So now you could have like 1,000 to 10,000 people learning at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But the initial approach was just, let's take what we're doing in the classroom and put it online. So it was very like broadcasty, lecture-y, right? So what they found with MOOCs is that the completion rates were like 5-10%. Like it was very, very low. So then people started to, and that was more like institutions putting that on. And then you started to get like creators and this is going to answer your question more directly. You started getting a lot of marketers who started to realize that this could be a way to make money, basically. So we're going to package information as a product and we're going to sell it online. And again, they didn't put much thought into actually delivering a transformation for the person that's going through it, right? So their focus wasn't on the product, then their focus was on what they were good at, which is marketing. So then you get these things like ClickFunnels and tripwires and upgrades and bonuses and webinars starting in 16 minutes. And it's like, like every hour, like it's ridiculous. So all of this sort of scammy stuff that you're alluding to, like that was what a lot of people still associate as an online course, right? And that's still, I mean, I'm on Clubhouse now a lot talking about the type of courses we want to build, and there are a lot of rooms that are talking about these other ones, and it's like, all right, like I see you across the aisle, like it's like very clearly different in like how we approaching this. I think those are the problems. That's why it gets a bad name.
Does that bother you that there's so many people who are also doing online courses that can give you a bad name in the sense of, oh, that person's an online course. And every time someone goes through a bad online course, they're like, online courses are scammy. And you are inherently associated with that because that's what you do, but you do it well. So does it bother you that people are using online courses the wrong way and doing them the wrong way?
I would say it did used to bother me, and that stigma is there. But you know what it's actually done now is it's given this counterpoint to what we do. So it's like now we can actually say that we're the opposite of that. It's like that thing that So it's just in a way it's been able to like associate for people that and so I'm seeing this like manifest in saying we're hosting these clubhouses and stuff, and so we get people joining the rooms, and I sort of give a little bit of a background. I talk about transformational online courses, so TOCs instead of MOOCs, and so I talk about like TOCs and what the philosophy behind that is, and like I get so many people who are multiple times have heard them say, "This feels like such serendipity. I stumbled into this clubhouse room, and like I found my tribe."
Wow.
Like, it's such a, I know you've heard that, like you've started to hear that as well. And it's such a great feeling to be like, yes, people are resonating with what I'm saying, what I believe in. And what that is like, they're passionate teachers. They actually care about creating student transformations. And you can make a lot of money doing this as well, which is great because it makes it, you can have a sustainable business doing it and like keep doing it. But first and foremost, it's teachers.
So talk a little bit about some of the teachers you've worked with and what specifically you've implemented so that their courses aren't like the first type of courses we first mentioned.
Yeah. So one of the first ones, which was more, so I was selected to be an alumni mentor for Rite of Passage 5, which was like my first experience in sort of the program team of an online course, which was an amazing experience. And David Perel and Will Mannon, to their credit, and I know Will's been on the show already, and I think David's you've had an episode working on with him. They've been incredible at pushing the boundaries and sort of pioneering a lot of stuff that will also say, and they will admit, a lot comes from what Seth Godin did with the Alta MBA as like one of the original pioneers of like where this new approach. So in cohort 5, they decided to have mentors, which allowed them to scale their impact to more people. And so that was one of the first most interesting observations I made was, so what was cool about this is David was very open about like, this is guys, like we're figuring this out as we go along. Like we, as mentors, we met once a week and we, game plan the week ahead, we debrief the week, and like, it was so collaborative, and he's got an incredible ability to just like absorb everything and then like come up with this really amazing summary of it at the end. And so those meetings were incredible. We just accelerated our learning and sort of built this program on the fly. And I went away with my family in the Poconos that summer, right after Rite of Passage, and I was on a run in the morning, and I was listening to a podcast with BJ Fogg, who's a professor and like big on like motivation, and he was talking about, and this is amazing because I like Googled it afterwards, and he hasn't written much about this, but he talked about this concept of a destination and a journey, and I was just like, holy shit. That's what those mentors were. Like, that was it.
Wow.
and David is the destination, right? Like everyone wants to write like him and have that ability to, and grow an audience like him and all that. And he can tell you the steps to get there. But like for most people, you're somewhere along on that journey. And so it's actually it's quite intimidating to learn from David, who's like done it all already, right? So you need you need people that are like on that same step as you to like, just to figure out how to get to the next step, never mind step 12, right? And so that was such a clear way for me of looking at a destination and journeys. And so I started writing about that. And then that resonated. And then I know someone that we both ended up recording on our shows was Ali Abdaal, who reached out to me. Like someone, he announced his course, his first cohort. Someone tweeted about it and was like, who else is going? And I responded. I was like, I'm definitely, I'm probably going to sign up. And he pinged me like right after that. Like he was like, Andrew, I've been following your stuff. Like first I was like, wow, what? And he was just like, yeah, I would love to, it's my first time doing this. I'd love to, learn like how to make it the best. And so we jumped on a call, we chatted, and he was like taking furious notes. Like, I'm sure, I don't know if you had like, he's another sponge who's just like always with ideas and just like absorbing what people are saying. And so, yeah, we spoke for like an hour. And then at the end, he's like, do you want to run my mentor program? and I was like, hell yes, that sounds amazing. And so I signed on with him to do that. And then one of the things, so he then gave me the idea he sort of added a level to it, so he didn't want to call them mentors because it was his first cohort. So he didn't have like, one of the benefits of what we did with David is all of us had done Rite of Passage before. So we were literally alumni mentor. So, he didn't have that benefit in cohort 1. So he's like, I'm going to call them peer supporters, and I'm going to get, people that I'm friendly with that have YouTube channels, but they don't have, 1.4 million subscribers yet. They know, but they know they're doing this. They're like, and so we created this peer supporter thing, which is another form of journey group, but it's people that are just one step ahead of where you are as a student. And it was a roaring success. Like one of the best parts of his course, every single one of those people knocked it out the park. The students that were in their sessions got so much value out of it. And sorry, I'm talking a lot here, but I don't.
It's perfect, man.
There's such a cool example of how valuable this was to him. Was he did a session in I think it was week 2, and he did a session on gear, and he did this whole thing on all the different gear he uses and different options available to you and stuff, and it freaked people out. Everyone was like, holy shit, I need to get all this fancy stuff, and they had all these questions, and it was, and so now this student body is it's sort of up in arms, or feeling very anxious about the whole thing. Now, normally what would happen is you'd only find that out maybe first of all, maybe it's feedback forms at the end, which is way too late, right. Or maybe it's in the next live session, which is 2 days later. But because he had this mentor model, he had one of his mentors, Bhav Sharma. She did a session just a couple hours after his live session, and in that they got instant feedback from this anxiety that people were feeling. Fed it back to Ali, and he put together a video with his team, and that same night sent out a video to everyone, clarifying, basically gave them a spectrum of if you're a beginner, think about this, if you're advanced, think about this, and it just settled the whole thing for everyone, right? So you had this super tight feedback loop.
It's incredible. And I want to go back to the becoming a mentor with David's Rite of Passage real quick. And what were a typical session like? Because it seemed like such an important part of your development as a teacher and helping others, at least for online courses. So what were those mentorship groups like and mentorship sessions like?
Yeah. So what's super cool is everyone, all 7 of us had a very different approach. And we would like I said, every Friday we'd meet and we'd learn from each other and update it and stuff. So we tried a lot of different things. I tried one of the sessions, putting a slide deck together and kind of taking people through some ideas and then opening it up for discussion. Others found some success with that. I didn't. I felt like it didn't connect me with the people in the room. And so I gravitated towards literally just having a room of, so Rite of Passage is 300 people. That's the destination group. And then you'd get typically 25 to 35 people that would come to each of the mentors. So it was a smaller, tighter knit group. And so it was, the best way I can describe it is just creating a space to be vulnerable, to share what are you struggling with in implementing what David's teaching. in just getting started with your writing. And so we would talk about imposter syndrome. We'd talk about like, having like idea capture, like how to optimize that, like how to just deal with like not being able to write, like writer's block, basically, like all these things. And I barely did any of the talking. All I had to do was facilitate the conversation, get people to start talking. And then it was just this like free for all where everyone had, some people would like, yeah, I had that same issue. And then others had helpful advice. And like, it was just this, yeah. So it was this vulnerable space to sort of say like, look, this is what I'm struggling with right now, so that you could take the next step and then get more out of David's, overall sessions every night.
Yeah, I love the idea that that person as a mentor or peer supporter is just one step ahead. And I think that's so valuable because like you said, it can be so intimidating when you look at someone so many steps ahead. So one of the questions I had to you about online courses in general was, do you think that it can be like, how do you love learning, I love learning, but the problem is there's so much amazing stuff to learn online and we could easily just find ourselves have our hand in one jar and then another. How do you think about that idea of like not getting distracted by so many things because there's so many amazing things to learn?
Yeah. That's such a good question. And something I've definitely struggled with at the beginning. Especially from even not just online courses, right? Anybody who's listening, like who just can't stop like reading all the amazing articles that are out there, listening to all the amazing podcasts that are out there. Like, how do you filter that? So, actually, a lot of the David in Rite of Passage and also Robbie Crabtree through his performative speaking course have actually Ali as well in part-time YouTubers have these sort of exercises of reflection and for an online course, it's super important to have students reflect on why they're doing the course. But these guys weave that into their course. And actually, so it's like, so in David's one, you're coming up with your 12 favorite problems that you like to think about and work on, right? And then you write an essay on that, or you pick like your most frequently asked question that you get and you write an essay on that. And Robbie has a core values exercise, which you then create a video presentation, like a speech on. But what those do is they force you to look inward and reflect and to come up with like why you're doing the thing you're doing, speaking or YouTubing or whatever. And I think that's a really good way to approach like all the information that's out there, like to kind of set up filters for it. By making sure it aligns with what you're most interested in, the problems you want to solve, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And what type of advice would you give for someone who's just starting, let's say, Rite of Passage? Because I'm asking selfishly, I'm starting that in a few days. I'm really excited, but what advice do you have for someone like that who's just starting, let's say, Rite of Passage?
Yeah. So do the homework. That like first and foremost, like do the exercises, do the homework. Ali actually says this in his program because he has like this, he has just so much content. He can't help himself. So he puts it all out there and people,
he's a machine.
Yeah, totally. Right. And he teaches you how to do that as well. And so people actually the students started feeling overwhelmed. They're like, I can't attend all these sessions. Am I going to miss out? Blah, blah, blah. And he was just like, just do the 4 videos. Like if you do nothing else, do the 4 videos we tell you to do, post them in the channel, get feedback, like really actively work on the craft, do the thing right? That's most important. So like, if you can't attend all the lectures, that's fine. Like I would even, I'd even go so far as to say, like, just focus on doing those things first, and then add on the lectures you can attend or like watch the replays or whatever. So that's definitely the first part. The other one is get involved in the community. People learn. We learn best from each other, right? It's like, it's primal. It's like it's tribal. Like, so if you don't throw yourself fully into the community, you're not going to get everything you can out of it. And I know this from experience because when I did Rite of Passage 3, I think it was, I didn't get involved in the community and I didn't get as much out of the program. Like I did probably most, and actually I didn't even complete the assignments because I didn't have that accountability and all of that, right? And so, my writing was like okay after that. But once I became a mentor for cohort 5, I went all in, and obviously by nature of the role as well. But like, yeah, I mean, I did all the assignments, I gave people feedback, I was getting feedback. My writing just exponentially improved after that. So I think those are the two big ones, like do the work and post it into the community, and give other people feedback, because you actually accelerate your own learning by giving feedback, and then obviously getting feedback as well.
You mentioned accountability. How do you bake that into the online courses that you create?
Yeah, so I was actually we piloted this in Rite of Passage, which was I was sort of nervous about it as well at the beginning. So I, these core like 20 or 30 people that would come to my mentor session. And I think for the second week, I said to them, okay, suggest everyone finds an accountability buddy. So pair up with someone else in the course. And so now, and I always tell course creators do this like in the second of, week onwards. But so they've had an opportunity to start to meet people. The key to success in this is that it's, first of all, it's opt-in, but it's also you organically form the group. You don't pair people, right? So you find people you resonate with, and you get together with them. And then I sort of gave like a very like loose thing. I was like, I'd recommend maybe meeting at the beginning of the week, sort of set your intention for the week, and then check in with each other at the end. And I was sort of nervous, like, do people want to do this? And maybe just because of my own like resistance to it when I first did this, I was like, that seems like such a big commitment. But everyone got an accountability buddy.
Wow.
Most people were like, can I do more than one? Like, can I, so I was like, yeah, as many as you want. Like, that's amazing. And to this day, there are still people from that Rite of Passage 5 who started a group then. There's one that's I know of, it's 7 months later, that are still meeting every morning.
Wow.
Every single morning. Yeah, they meet and go through their writing accountability together.
That's incredible. How do you personally use accountability in your own life?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's like surrounding yourself with people who are pushing the envelope, who are really pushing themselves. I haven't always had that, and I think because of that, I was probably a slow starter. Like, especially I go back to South Africa. Like I used to dick around quite a bit. Like when I was younger.
Me too.
I grew dreadlocks for 2 years. I was like very dangerously close to like going on a totally different path at one point. But I enjoyed myself a hell of a lot there. But I think the thing I was missing was like people around me who were pushing themselves and like ambitious and like getting, just constantly like wanting to improve themselves. And so now when I look at the last 6 months, I mean, the last 3-4 years, but especially the last 6 months, like it's being around people like I mentioned Robbie earlier. Like he's a good friend of mine now, and like that dude has spurred me on to do so many things, including joining On Deck. Like because of that, he's just got this like incredible motor and just drives himself forward all the time, and it's sort of contagious. And I think this is a cool idea. A lot of people do tweet about that, like surround yourself by, you're sort of the average of the 5 creators and people that you spend the most time with, or whose content you consume the most, right? And so I think that's super important.
You mentioned before just that you were dangerously close to going down the wrong path in life. I'm curious, what happened to make that not happen?
Yeah. I think, some of it was a bit of latent ambition, that like I wanted to do something more with my life. Like it was in Cape Town. I was actually like studying to be an accountant. So I became a qualified chartered accountant, and actually started working with dreadlocks as a chartered accountant, which was probably the only person in South Africa at that time doing that. Not that that's something to be proud of, but but yeah, like it. And I think at that point I'd already sort of decided, but it was also at that point where I started getting into the world of teaching. And so like in the accounting world, like many professional education background, like the training programs are a very big part of it. So you spend big chunks of the year like going through training. And I always just loved it. I looked at the people doing that and I was like, I want that job. Like, how do I do what you're doing? That's amazing. And then I started doing that, and that's when I started getting serious. Like I want to be up in front of the room teaching people and helping them, kickstart their careers. And it was that point that I'd got a placement in Johannesburg, which is like the financial capital of South Africa. So I moved from Cape Town, where there are a lot more dreadlocks, to Johannesburg, where there are a lot less dreadlocks. And I was actually there, and I decided to cut them off and sort of like embrace this world of sort of corporate training, I guess. And so it's, partly like ambition. I wanted to be really good at that, and sort of an identity thing. Like I wanted to help people and teach them, like I said, like in their careers. And I think part of that was also to be you have to sort of be a role model to them as well. And I think that got me to like, all right, like I should probably get rid of these dreads.
Well, it's really interesting because going back to the accountability, when you are a teacher, you are accountable to your students inherently. And so it's almost like, well, I have to show up, I have to perform. And you notice that when you were doing Rite of Passage as a mentor, you then were more accountable, more involved in the community, in part because you knew if you expected the students to do it, you also had to do it. So it's really interesting how that works out.
It is. And teaching is one of the best accelerators for learning. Like it's right. Like it's amazing. Like if you really want to learn something, teach it. It's you really you're forced to think about the first principles of it and to really like get into that level of detail and then be able to explain something. Like I interviewed an amazing guest recently who'd said like I'm going to butcher the way she said this, but it was basically that like the sort of hallmark of like, she didn't say genius, but like basically like a smart person able to simplify complex ideas. And it's so true. Like that's teaching, right? That's the act of teaching. And I love that. I like accountability is such a big part of it as well.
So one of the ways you're currently teaching is on YouTube, where you're recording videos of yourself, and it might not seem like teaching, but it is teaching. You're presenting the ideas in a way that the audience can better understand it. So you're teaching them a new concept. What have you learned from YouTube and starting to publish regularly on a new platform?
Yeah, man, it's so cool that you saw that. I've just started doing it, and first of all, realizing that being consistent and putting and publishing every time, and also it's sort of, there's a lot of parts of this, but like just shipping, it's 85%, 90% ready. Like you're never going to we waited quite a bit before, and I'm lucky because I have a company that does training production. So I basically have like a producer and an editor who can help me with it, which is amazing. And they are making me look a lot better than I am. You have to, this is basically the essence of Ali's course as well. It's like, you have to just keep doing it and like be okay with the product so that you can then get the feedback. Chris Sparks talks about this a lot, like that tight feedback loop, then make the change, update, do another one. And like Ali says, like the way to make an amazing YouTube channel is to do 50 shitty videos, like get it out of your system, and then improve, just keep improving. That's a big one I've learned. The other cool thing I think about video is that it has a potential. I haven't cracked this yet, but like Ali and like a lot of these great, really good creators are doing it. It has the potential to capture emotion, which is, I think, it's the power of that medium. And if you capture emotion, you can capture attention. And then if you've got attention, you've now got a very small window of opportunity to then maintain or like hold that attention. And that's where actually I think Ali does particularly well, because his are very educational. So like if you get attention and then you teaching someone something, you can then hold that attention, and then and you make it practical and they can apply things and stuff. So so for my company Curious Lion, we've been doing we were especially up until recently doing a lot of video based stuff, and that's the essence of that, like capture the attention and then hold the attention.
What is your favorite medium? You've played around with podcasts, YouTube, and writing. It's like basically the holy trinity in the online content creation world. What is your favorite of all those three?
It's a great question. I love recording podcasts like this. It's amazing. So there's that conversational energy piece. Video is a lot of work. So it's a shitload of work, and I still need to refine the process so that I can literally just press play, record and go. So that one I'm still heading friction on. But I think it's probably all going to come down to writing, in that
Mm.
it's the number one way that I've clarified the way I think about a lot of these things. Like yeah, I mean, yeah, I know I think you talk a lot, like, about journaling and like and writing down thoughts and ideas, and so writing for yourself is super important, to help clarify thoughts, and then and then publishing it and putting it out in the world and getting feedback, and now it's like, I feel like I'm like channeling what David says a lot, because this is basically what he teaches, is that you then create serendipity through that.
Mm-hmm.
You just, and I'm now seeing the benefits of that when like Ali Abdaal reaches out to me. It's because
Right.
yeah, like I didn't know he knew me, but he was clearly reading some of the stuff that I've been writing. So
What are some of the ways you've changed your mind or clarified your thinking recently? Let's say in the past 3 months or 6 months.
yeah, so I think a big one is that if you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go with someone or go with people. And that, I'm sort of paraphrasing. I think so. I've looked this. It's supposed to be an African proverb. No one really knows where that comes from, but that's the essence of it. And it's something that I really enjoyed. I still, do the solopreneur, like business owner, like having complete control over my own time. And I've had that for the last 5 years, and it's been amazing, especially after 10 years working, for companies. And so I was quite reluctant to give that up when I joined On Deck at the beginning of this year. But I've seen, that funny enough, that quote, like, isn't it weird how this happens? Like that quote popped up like 2 or 3 times in that sort of week that I was like thinking about this and stuff. And it's like, there's so much truth in that statement. And I've now seen that in like night and day, that I've launched an online course that's now oversubscribed in a month, which I never would have been able to do on my own. So yeah, I think that's been a big shift for me, like literally, like as the year turned into 2021.
It's incredible. I love to hear it. We talked about podcasting, and I want to circle back to it. What makes it such a great medium for you? I know you talked about the conversational energy, but going deeper than that, what is it about podcasting that you love so much?
Yeah, so it's this amazing way to like get to know strangers deeply and intimately, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Like it feels like this like cheat code, this like cool thing that you get to do, like anybody can do, right? It's just invite someone on this thing and then you talk like we're doing now. It's like, it's amazing. And so I've used that for, like, I interviewed someone who, Max Nissenbaum, who works at On Deck, and it was basically like, because we hadn't had a chance in the month I've been there to connect yet and learn more about him. He's a colleague, he's a colleague of mine. So I'm going to be working with him a lot. And it was this, so we're like, let's get a podcast, like let's record a podcast. And that made a total bunch of sense, because we can record it, we can share it with others. And we spent an hour like getting to know each other and talking about our stories. And so, yeah, it's just, I think that's a huge thing, like getting to know people like that. And I've done 15, I think you're at like in the 60s or 70s now. Like you just, that's an incredible scale and like of people. Sort of networking is a terrible word for this, but like you've just now got this very rich network of friends.
Yeah. And it's crazy because there's such a value to that you couldn't possibly predict before starting. Like you can't put a monetary value on the people I've connected with and the things they're interested in. It's just incredible, like you said. So all this goes to say, like, you're spending a lot of time on the computer, around the computer in some way, videos, podcasts, writing, connecting with people, learning. How do you balance that and also time away from the computer?
Yeah. I'll tell you, I need to do a better job at balancing it, like especially recently. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned when we went away for the Poconos trip, which was last summer, and I mean, last year was a shit show for everyone, right? And so, like, I think normally we would have gone to South Africa. We go back there once a year, see my family and stuff, and that's always a welcome break. It's actually, yeah, it's great. I mean, I always take my laptop, but like, there are plenty of days where I don't ever open it. So that's, but short of that, like, it was, we went away on this trip to Lake House and like able to unplug a little bit there, but. I need to do a much better job at that. I do definitely feel like too plugged in at times.
Mm.
And too like, it's not like it's enjoyable. Like, so it's like, you
That's
know
the
what I mean?
problem, right?
Yeah. Like I really enjoy like getting on that, I'm in these back-to-back interviews with people, which I was saying to you at the beginning, like before we recorded, and it's amazing. Like I get so much energy of it. And at the end, I'm totally wiped. Like I'm done for but so it's, I don't know. It's really hard. How do you think about that?
I think that it's really important to start my day with a meditation session and kind of set the scene for myself of like, this is calmness, this is relaxation, because
Yeah.
I was creating content before. Like I've been on and off with content creation from 2009 to present day and really only focused in and been locked in for the last year.
Yeah.
And the reason why I've maintained such a consistent output is because I feel comfortable with myself and calm with myself. And so that allows me to do everything that I do. And that all starts with no screens, no nothing, just listening
Mhm.
to myself and tuning into myself every day. So
Yeah.
is that
Uh,
something you've done at all, considered
yeah.
at all, meditation and listening to yourself in any way? It could be through a walk or shower. Doesn't have to be sitting with your thoughts, but
Yeah, totally, man. I try and practice meditation every morning. And in fact, like one of the best, most productive stretches of my life was when back in college and I was sort of studying for final exams. And I wasn't the most dedicated student during the year. So I had a lot of catching up to do, but I made that work for me. I basically locked myself away for a month and just like went on this learning sprint to get through everything. And I started my day with meditation. It was like, yeah, was just super like focused on that. Slept well. Sleeping is another huge part of this, right? That's a big one. I do try and get at least 7 or 8 hours sleep every day. Like
mm,
that's super important, which has meant going to bed quite a lot earlier, like than I'm used to. But that's been good. I like what you're saying, like starting the day with meditation as well, because that's the quietest time of the day generally as well, right? So yeah, I like to get up early and like get that sort of done. Yeah, but I feel like it starts your day gets eaten into. The more these type of things you do, the more like stuff you get involved with.
it's really interesting because the day can seem so slow without screens. Like I went on a detox with no 5 days of no anything, no screens, no technology, no Wi-Fi, nothing.
Yeah.
And the day was so slow. But using screens, sometimes the day feels so fast. Like
Sorry.
how did that happen? Like it's nighttime already. What do you mean? You know what I'm
Totally.
talking about?
I know
So
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, it's just crazy that and not to say one's better than the other. I think they both have their place in life. Just
Yeah.
it's really interesting how screens and being really excited about something can change our perception of time.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Like I wonder if it's you're just less aware of it, right? Like attention. It comes back to that and awareness. I think
Yeah.
I was listening to one of your, I think was it or it might have been Chris Sparks or Steve Schlafman. You guys were talking about awareness and like how I think it was Chris and the importance of that. And like I think you're totally right. Like so being like on this, you've got like other things that are taking your attention and being on a Zoom call all the time, like Zoom fatigue is a real thing, right? It just draws your awareness outside of like yourself, I guess.
Yeah. Absolutely. Dude, this has been so much fun. Do you have anything else to add to the conversation before we finish it up?
Yeah, man. I would love to know a little bit about you had an online course, transparent drop shipping.
Wow. Dude, you're incredible. You've researched me. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Yes.
I would love to know because it sounds like the way you were describing it when I heard you talk about it was so this sort of like completes the circle of where we started this conversation about like the difference between what the courses that give it a bad name and like transformational online courses. It sounds like the way you're thinking about that was very much aligned with that and a lot of the stuff we've talked about. Like, yeah, how did you sort of come up with that idea? What were you trying to achieve with it?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I wanted to do what you're doing now. I just didn't know that was possible. I didn't know how to go about executing. And it really bothered me for a long time that I couldn't delivered that outcome, that transformation, even though that was my initial intent. And it was like something that gnawed at me for a while and made me take away and go away from dropshipping and e-commerce in general. My intention with the course was, listen, everyone else is hiding what they're doing. I want to show you exactly what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. But I didn't have a way to engage community. I didn't have a way to like have live courses. I didn't have the idea to do that. I didn't have the idea to make it live and, you know, come in and ask me questions. And it really bothered me because I was just putting up my content and thinking that was enough. And some people were extremely happy with it and thought like, this is the greatest thing ever. Other people were like, I want my money back. And I did. I gave them my money back. And it bothered me so much because I couldn't give them that final product. Yeah. So that's why I'm so grateful for talking to you and what you do, because it's like you're fulfilling that hole that was left in me from doing that course.
Yeah. It's amazing. You have this passion of a teacher. Like because I get to talk to so many people who I see this in, and it's like, I can recognize this. Like you care about giving that transformation. Like that's a legitimate thing. So it's like that. Oh man, it's so cool. Like I wish maybe you still have it in you. Like I don't know, you've gone far from dropshipping now, but like you've got an online course in you. I know it. Like there is a lot going on in there that can benefit people.
Yeah, the thing is also about dropshipping in particular was it didn't align with who I wanted to be, because it, you know, like just like online courses can get a bad rap, like dropshipping can get a bad rap too if it's not done ethically and like with the right intent. And it really hurt me that I was associated with all those people that weren't doing it the right way. And it led me to stop doing it all entirely. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I actually like it. You know how deeply that resonates with me is that I had a business that's still sort of running, but it's a side business that helped people with lead generation. And it was like B2B lead generation through LinkedIn. And so I created a course on that. I thought I could teach other people how to do it. And I did a few like small cohorts, and, you know, people enjoyed it, whatever, but it was fine. It was good content, but it was, like you said, I didn't care enough about the topic to really put all my everything into it, like I'm doing now with this stuff. And it just had no chance of succeeding because of that. Right. This is like, you talk about this a lot, like connecting with that thing that you are passionate about, like the thing that drives you and makes you. How do you sort of reconcile that with like also needing to make money in it? You know, like a lot of people see it as like, well, I can't do that because I need to like pay the bills. I have a job, right? Like, yeah. What are your thoughts?
It's a great question. And I'm so grateful to, one, have saved up money from doing the drop shipping, and two, to have parents who give me a roof over my head and let me go. And, you know, it's a conversation, you know, every week at the dinner table, like, when are you going to get a job? And who knows, by the time this episode is released, I may have a job, right? But it's like, I'm just constantly trying to understand that my purpose is to pursue the highest version of myself and help other people do that. My purpose is to make the world happier, healthier, and wiser. And if I can do that, I am lit up, and I believe that will lead to money down the line. I may not have anything to show for it in this moment, but I genuinely believe in all my heart that it will lead to income. So that's kind of how I think about it. And it's a constant battle because I'm not making any money right now, but I'm loving what I'm doing more than anything I've ever done in my life. And I hope that will lead to income down the line.
And I think you can have confidence that will happen, right? I think there's so many now ways opening up for that, like online courses. Like I legitimately believe everyone, I 100% believe you have an online course in you. And I think most people do. Like, I think if you are able to help people with some kind of thing that you've figured out that you are, you know, good at, and you can do that with one person, you can do that with hundreds of people. Like, and the gap, the bridge there is just learning how to teach better. And that's a skill, like any other skill, you can learn that. You know?
Yes. And I think what's made me hesitant to just put out an online course or just do one is because of the bad experience I had with transparent dropshipping and the experience of not doing it to the best of my abilities or the best of my, of making every person transformed. Right. Like, and that still haunts me. And maybe it's something that I'll revisit in later date in the sense of like, doing it better and doing it in a different way and helping people in a different way. So yeah, it's why I had you on this podcast, because I'm curious about it, and it's something that I want to improve if I decide to go down that route. But I know it's an actual skill and not just something you can say, oh, I'm doing an online course and make X amount of money. No, like you have to put your heart into it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, when that time comes, you better come reach out to me, and I love to work with you on that.
You know I will.
Awesome.
Yeah, this has been such a pleasure, man. Where can people find more from you if they want to? And I'm sure they do after this conversation.
Yeah, man. Thanks, Danny. So the best place is on Twitter. I'm Bazzaruto, which is Bazzaruto. And I respond to all DMs are open. So definitely hit me up there. If you want to learn more about course creation, go to beyonddeck.com/course creator. There's a whole, or just search on the website that I'm so excited about that fellowship. And if people really want to take their online course to the next level, like that's going to be the place to do it. I think we've got an amazing community that we're building there. So
I'm so excited to watch the journey, and all those will be in the show notes at dannymiranda.com/podcast. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking the time, and this has been so much fun.
Thank you, Danny. It's been amazing. Appreciate it, man.